You ever have one of those mornings when you know you're supposed to do something and you just say, words of an old song, where do I begin? We've covered quite a bit. Believe it or not, we've covered quite a bit. Oops. Supposed to be up this way. We've covered quite a bit of the book of James, honestly, because we've moved forward and come back. So it might only say that we're a little over halfway through chapter 3, but we've moved around in the book. A couple of things, well, at least one thing I need to fix before I go very far this morning. Last week, talking about Abraham offering Isaac, and I made a comment that could well have been construed that, the Ten Commandments said he shouldn't have done that. There's a time error there. And somebody, I won't say his name, but the initials are Gary Nunn, kindly pointed out to me that, the Ten Commandments weren't there when Abraham was faced with that circumstance. True. Very true. So I did not utter 10 commandments. I did say something like, thou shalt not kill, which was probably a valid rule of law, God's law for Abraham. But just to fix it time-wise, 10 commandments had not been put out as 10 commandments at that time. So to clear up any misconception or chronological disorder, got it. Okay? Seemed like there was something else I wanted to hit about last week's class, but it escapes me for now. Sometime in the middle of class, it'll come back and you'll get one of those, where did that come from? So anyway, what did we talk about last week? Very briefly, what did we talk about? The tongue. And specifically, we alluded to some sins of the tongue. What are just a couple? We're not going to go back over everything. A couple of sins of the tongue. I landed on one. Somebody, not here this morning, but somebody really went far ahead and said, gossip. And I was wanting to hold that one till a little bit later, but it's one we cannot ignore. Gossip will just tear apart any kind of good relationship. What are the sins of the tongue? Oh my goodness, that's a good one too. Harsh words, anger. Lying, yep. Lying. Judging unfairly. Slander. Okay. I'm sorry. Murmuring, yeah. Somebody said something else? Deceit. Yep. Yep. Okay. Oh. False doctrine, yes. What verse would we go to talk about that one or to learn something about it? Or verse as, just keep it brief, as I do want to move on. Verse 1, go ahead.
Many of you teachers, they shall receive heavy judgment.
Okay. Verse 1 of the chapter we're in, right. Okay. I thought you were going back to verse 1. Because there is a lot of false doctrine about that. Something I was watching early this morning, and they said, these have been here for 45 million years. Really? It was an archaeological site, and yeah, right. That's a whole other set of topics, so getting into that kind of thing, the evidences and all that. Whole nother one I do hope we we do sometime soon. I think it's important. Not to bring these things along to prove the Bible. Let's state the Bible and believe that. But there are some things that can bolster, shall we say, our faith. And I think they're a good study, at least at some level, in some kind of setting. So, pick one of those that we have just enumerated here, those sins of the tongue, and say a few words about it. This is your turn. Okay.
Well, I mentioned lying, and what it does is it breaks trust.
Yeah, it does. Okay, another.
This is not a specific observation on one out of the list, but with James's observation in chapter 3, verse 5, that the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. I think every time that I've ever heard this talked about, it's been talked about in terms of gossip. You know, that you say something you shouldn't say about somebody, and the next thing you know, it's gotten far out of hand and all that sort of thing. And it's true there. But the reality is, almost all of the sins that we commit with our tongues have effects that go far beyond the sin itself, or at least can. And so it's interesting to me that he's not criticizing a specific one. He's trying to make us mindful of all of them. They all have more power than we often realize.
Yeah. Good point. Next time you see news coverage about a prairie fire spreading as quickly as it does, think back. Think about sins of the tongue. Okay? Anger. Okay, I'll come back to that. Go ahead, Rob.
I know we're talking about the negative side of the tongue. These two verses in the middle of all this really needs to catch our attention. It says, with the tongue we bless our Lord and Father, yet we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing.
Yeah. How do you think he means that to be taken?
Not in a good way. My brothers, these things ought not be so.
Yeah. He's chastising them, isn't he? Saying, go ahead.
Inconsistent.
Yeah. He's saying, you're being inconsistent. Go ahead.
Just another thought in reference to what Dan said about teaching and that sort of thing. There's a host of passages, and I don't mean to get to all of them, but in Acts the 20th chapter, as he warns the Ephesian elders, he said that some of you shall arise speaking perverse things to draw away the disciples after them. Same thing with Hymenaeus and Philetus. They taught that the resurrection was already past. And he said they overthrow the faith of some. So this element of gossiping and that sort of, that's just part of it. But the element of teaching, and I think we get back to the third chapter, verse 1, be not many of you teachers. We got a very sobering responsibility as teachers, lest we overthrow people's faith.
That was the other one. Had to do with the teaching. Be not many teachers, and we talked about some of the things we talked about. But one thing that I did not mention, and nobody else mentioned, we got to have the right motivation to be teachers. Got to have the right motivation. Not just a matter of saying, well, I'm going to get up front and I'm going to be the one they see. That's not it. It is for some folks, but that's not what it ought to be. It ought to be for the right motivation. I hesitate to use the word motive because that gets into another area. Did he have opportunity, means, and motive? I'm not going down that road. Watch a cop show, you can figure it out. Okay? I think we need, though, one other one. We need, because In the kind of times we're in right now, I know I find myself finding it real easy to be angry. I can be, it's too easy, let me say, to be angry. So without giving that that a whole lot of attention, need to talk just a few minutes about the anger, or anger as one of the sins of the tongue. You know, yes, gossip spreads like wildfire. But what about anger? When a parent, a spouse, unleashes on the other spouse or a child, isn't there more than just that immediate unleashing that is caused? You know, I've dealt with some folks, young folks, who seem to be angry and picking on other kids and so on. Why? Or picking, I'm sorry?
To build themselves up.
Yeah, they do it to look bigger, but where'd it come from?
Because they are unhappy with they are unhappy.
Okay, another motive, but where did it come from? Sorry?
The devil.
Closer to them, though. Where did it come from?
What they learned at home.
What they learned at home. Okay? Yes, the source was the devil, just like some of what we're going to see in class this morning. But for a lot of them, it's what they learned at home. Be careful, young parents. Be careful, husbands and wives. You know, I can go back to Roger Miller's Husbands and Wives song. I gave you part of it last week, so go look it up if you want all the words. I might give you another song today, but there's a page and a half of lyrics that I had no idea about. Anger and gossip, false doctrine, lying, these sins of the tongue. When we read James, dig into it. Think some of these things through. Okay, Alex.
Anger, I mean, is that really that negative of an emotion? You know, when God is angry with his people multiple times, is that a sin? No. You know, and James addresses this, and we had talked about it where it's, you know, be slow to anger, slow to speak, slow to anger. Why? Because, you know, the next verse, chapter 1, verse 20 says, the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Us getting angry, the reasons why we get angry is out of a idea of self-righteousness. A wrongdoing is being done, and so we feel that way, and it moves us. So to me, I would think that anger needs to be seen as something, as a motivator to action, but we need to be wise about it.
Okay, we've covered this a time or two. Anybody else want to be the one to wrap it up about anger?
Be angry, sin not.
Okay, thank you. Well done. Okay, knowledge and wisdom. What's the difference? Well, I heard it a couple of times already in this class, so not today, but the difference, yes, Jerome.
When I was studying, I put knowledge is accumulated of, a accumulation of facts, truth, and information. It can be studied, learned, and then I put, let's see, wisdom, let me go back here. accumulation of knowledge, life, and understanding of truth. And then wisdom discerns how to act on that fact or on that truth in a way that honors God. That's what
Okay. Marcus, your hand was up too. Same thing? Pretty standard definitions highlighting the difference. Thought I had one other note somewhere about
Commentator named Derek Kittner that says wisdom is the ability to live life skillfully.
that's good. Yeah. Did it come out on what I printed out? Do we still have a whiteboard here? Anybody know? I don't want it today. We'll get beyond it today. But if we do, because if we did today, what I would do is kind of like the mathematical symbols. Not that I was good at math in school, believe me. But I do know the sign for not equal to, you have the equal sign and the slash through. I would have put something like that up there. And then I would put something like the amount of knowledge is greater than, for you, this way, greater than, with the tip of the arrow pointing to the right, is greater than wisdom. Who wants to explain?
Run the equation one more time. Not good at math
Am
either.
I speaking slowly? No.
Do it with a southern accent, I'll catch it.
Yeah, but you wouldn't catch a West Virginian accent. Okay, time to poke fun at West Virginians. When you're speaking about more than one person, in the Deep South, even Kentucky, what's the quick term you use? Y'all. Okay. If you're from New Jersey, you guys, something like that. In West Virginia, and I've never, even though I spent 18 years of my life there, I have never understood where they got Ewans. I suppose it's a contraction for you ones, but I can honestly say it was never a regular part of my vocabulary. Where? Okay, enough fun at my background. The equation would have been greater, which one do you want? The slash through the equal sign or the greater than? Okay, go ahead.
Was it knowledge is greater than?
The amount of knowledge is greater than the amount of wisdom.
Go ahead.
Oh,
You can learn a lot more facts than you have the wisdom to apply.
right. Particularly today. I'm sorry. I have to be careful about how often I use that word. I'm sorry. It gets pointed out to me at times. Go ahead.
One aspect about knowledge we see is that knowledge puffs arrogance, but love covers a multitude of sins. So it's showing that love, even, which I would say wisdom falls under, or love falls under wisdom. It supersedes knowledge.
Okay. But the amount of knowledge, especially today with the internet and all sorts of publications, there's a lot of stuff out there to be learned, to be acquired as part of one's own body of knowledge. But why does wisdom lag so far behind?
It's hard to teach somebody to be wise.
Yeah. And what do we get in chapter 1 here? If any of you lack wisdom, ask God, but ask God in faith, not doubting. And he goes on, and we talked about the soccer ball, I think it was, Wilson. We might see one of Wilson's relatives today if we get far enough along. Because we're going to see somebody else that's described. Got to have faith. Okay. The other part of that, the other equation, was somebody?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to the quote from chapter 1. Here at the end of chapter 3, who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in meekness, wisdom. And then verse 15, the wisdom that comes down from above is what we want. It is pure, verse 17, it is pure, peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere.
Any of you get this paper this morning? Dan just covered it. But we can spend a little more time talking about part of it. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 7. Would somebody get that? And then someone else, we're not going to read all 22 of them, but a quick synopsis of chapter 3, Proverbs chapter 3, 13 through 35. Did you ladies get one of these? Nope. Are there any of these left? Okay, Nathan has a couple here coming up. Who else did not get? Whoa. Are there more back there? Okay. Marcus needs. Thank you, Nathan. All right, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 7. Go ahead.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil.
All right. Brings up a point or an area for discussion. What are the sources of wisdom? What kinds of wisdom? There are at least two. Because there's another one brought up in this passage, but where can we get wisdom from? Supposedly wisdom. Okay, the world.
There's godly wisdom and there's earthly wisdom.
Yeah, there's godly and there's earthly. Where's that earthly come from? Some of it anyway. One's mind. Okay, experience. I'm sorry?
The news.
The new, oh.
Well, I was going to say philosophy, but it filters through the news. I mean, that's how we get it the vast majority of the time.
Okay.
Academic world is another place.
Okay. What other place? Okay.
It's demonic.
Okay. You see that term in this passage, or in James 3. So, way back, if we go really to the root, go back to the Garden of Eden, what were the sources? God said this. Serpent said this. Fundamentally. So, the one we want to grab onto and practice, and the other one we want to just avoid. It comes down to choices. What choice are you going to make? Are you going to listen to God who said, don't eat of that fruit? Or are you going to listen to the serpent that said, but if you do, remember way back a few weeks ago, desire, design, the way, the steps through sin, how temptation ends in sin, which ends in that other D word, death. Okay? Anybody get to skim those 22 verses, other 22 verses in Proverbs 3 and want to wrap them up for us real quick? Well, then, for a short reading, are you ready?
I can read it if you'd like. You said sum it up.
Yeah.
With all thy getting, get understanding. That's what it says, and I think that sums it up nicely.
Yeah. With all this stuff you're learning, knowledge, get some understanding. What are you really seeing? That's why don't just read a passage. Get into it. See what these writers are telling us. And then Proverbs chapter 4, verses 5 and 7.
But that was verse 7.
Okay, that's in Proverbs. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we're ahead. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25. There's quite a bit in the first chapters of 1 Corinthians, but I want to move on through this too. So what do we have in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25?
Foolishness of God is wiser
Yeah.
than men.
The foolishness of God is greater than the wisdom of man. So, who are you going to listen to? All right, now we're down. That was all introduction. Now we're down to the discussion part. Are you ready? How do we demonstrate wisdom? According to James chapter 3, verse 13, there are a couple of ways that wisdom is demonstrated. What are they?
Good works and in the meekness of wisdom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Through one's good works and through one's meekness. What other terms are in there for meekness? Gentleness. What's that tell you? Humility. What's it tell you you shouldn't make as the general practice in communicating?
Don't approach it with pride.
Yeah. Say it a little bit louder for those at the back.
Don't approach it with pride.
Okay. You don't have to hit most people over the head. Go ahead.
Well, also back in chapter 1, verse 21, it says, receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. So if
Yeah.
we're receiving it with meekness, and that is our attitude and how we receive it, that's how we will also show it in our lives, because that pride is not a part of us.
Okay. You see these, I've mentioned these threads through James. You see how something he said way back in chapter 1, it's going to come up again. It's there. Look for it and see how it ties. Go ahead, Rob.
I think with regards to speech, I would think that in knowledge is what we say. Wisdom is when to say it and how to say it.
And how, yeah. 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 Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. You recall? If you don't recall reading it, you might have heard it in a song back in the 60s, those of us who were around then. To everything there is a season. Forget who sang it, somebody else. Who's Birds, I thought, with a Y. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Birds with a Y. They called it 3 words. Well, 1 word 3 times. Okay, music lesson done. Okay, but it was there. Okay, all right. So things do need to be covered. To Alex's point about anger, yes, sometimes we need to express anger, but how? How? Gently, go ahead.
Well, we didn't kind of touch on it, but verse 13, it's by his good conduct. Like that it's conducting yourself well. You show your works and you show your wisdom. So it is the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you are out in the world, you show these things.
Yeah, that's one of the two methods. Okay? That's one of the two ways we are expressing, showing the kind of wisdom we should be showing. Turn over to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 12. And somebody else, Philippians chapter 2, verses 15 and 16. Who's got which of them? Okay, and okay, go ahead.
15 and 16. That you may be blameless and innocent, children of God, without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain.
Okay. Either of the other passages? You had one. Go ahead, please.
Maintain good conduct among Gentiles, so that in the case they speak against you as wrongdoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation.
Okay. So, can't let it slip. The reason for doing that is not so, he looks like such a wonderful person. What's the end goal? That God is glorified. Okay?
The influence we have on others, I think we take, if we're not careful, we take it for granted. What we know, we can use as tools. If we use God's instructions, we can use them well and make a huge influence on others, and within the congregation, obviously.
Okay, good. All right, I can't let it go. Every year, about Christmas time, there is a specific Jimmy Stewart movie that is played.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes. How many of you, just how many of you have seen it at least 1 to 3 times? 4 to 10. More than 10. Yeah. You remember when Jimmy Stewart's character, George Bailey, okay, is so distraught. Things have not gone well, and he's considering suicide. And he is made to reflect. And what are the things he is made to reflect on? I know my daughter could answer this, but she's probably one of those who has seen it more than 10 times. But what are the things he's made to reflect on? I'm sorry?
His family, his influence.
His influence on whom?
Others. The whole town.
The whole town, others. What kind of influence had he had? You remember when so-and-so was down and you, George, did this? You remember when, and it was a whole bunch of little things.
If you weren't there, this would not have happened, or this would have happened.
Yeah.
It would have been worse.
Yeah. If you hadn't been there, George, never underestimate the power of the influence of a good life, of conducting ourselves as we should.
The last verse of chapter 3 in James. A harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. That's the
Okay.
life of wisdom.
All right. Let's see. True wisdom, this wisdom, oh, verse 14. If you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This is another of those areas in this passage where he's saying, you want to claim this, then you'd better behave like this. You know, we put it in the term walk the talk. That's one. But if he is saying, if you have bitter envy, don't try to pass yourself off as a good person. Because that envy inside, oh man, 5 minutes to go. All right, I'm going to cover something. We may have to come back and hit this real briefly again, but go ahead and look at the rest of the sheet, the origin, the operations, and the outcomes that Wiersbe suggests as a quick way to look at this, or as some kind of an order. But a couple things I want to cover. What's the difference between envy and jealousy? We know they're both condemned. What's the difference in them? Yes, sir.
Like anger can turn to wrath. So it's how long you dwell on.
Okay. I think there's another area, another way we can express this. Marcus?
How I've always kind of had it explained to me is that jealousy is kind of the precursor to envy in a way, because envy is more so wishing that you had someone else's possessions, where jealousy is kind of, you're frustrated with the fact that they have it. So like envy is the combination of, yes, you're frustrated with the fact that you're upset with the fact that they have it, but you're upset to the point that you wish you had it for yourself. Like King David is the example that I usually think of when I think of envy with Bathsheba, because it caused him to kill his own right-hand man to get Bathsheba.
Okay, I'm going to suggest, in the interest of time. Oh, no, I'm not. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, envy is wanting what someone else had. Jealousy is having lost something and wanting it back and feeling very envious about it. So the Pharisees were jealous of Jesus because he took away from them.
Okay, well put. Envy is a desire for something somebody else has. Jealousy is a matter of, I'm afraid somebody's going to take this from me, or this is mine. You can't. High school romances, jealousy. High school romances and jealousy. You never know any couples that somewhere along the line jealousy came up? No.
I don't know a couple, but it happened in my daughter's school in Burbank High School in California. And there was two boys wanted to date the same girl from different schools. But it got so bad that boy went and got a gun and shot the kid.
Okay.
Over a girl. And they were
Okay.
both young, they were only about like 16 years old. And so,
Envy has to do, you've got that nice car. I want that nice car. Jealousy is a matter of protecting what's yours. Nobody else has a right to this. And it's not just a matter of boyfriend, girlfriend. If you want to get into that, go look up the words on Frankie and Johnny, another old song. But think about it in terms of, who's going to get credit for the work I did at the office? Who's going to get credit for the way I took care of this? You know, it's more than just these surface things, like the high school romances. Okay, we all grow through them. But dig into these things. You know, when the writers are inspired, the things they say, the things they wrote because God said, I want this written down. So, in any case, envy and jealousy are both wrong. We'll plan to pick up, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I kind of want to ask a question that I don't know the answer to.
Everybody listen up then.
Is jealousy ever an acceptable emotion? We have God being called a jealous God. How do we, is that ever acceptable for us? And if so, when? And if not, why? So I'll just throw that out there and then we're done.
What would you think? I think I could answer. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't catch quite all that. I was literally looking at the scripture, Exodus 34:14, when you said that if worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. And if it goes back to who's getting the glory, wanting the glory, that would jive with God wanting the glory. He's jealous of that. He wants that glory. I don't know. Throw that out there.
Okay, somebody write down. This is where we need to pick up next week. Is it okay for us to be jealous at some time? And more than a yes or no answer. So that's your thought question to work on for the week. Is it okay for us to be jealous? If yes, explain. If no, explain.